customers who will buy the volumes that I needed, but I had committed to changing the way Nigerian women saw makeup. Would they then start buying brushes? Today, everyone uses makeup brushes. At the time, that was not the case. You had these small applicators. But I got this idea to host a formal launch in my makeup studio. And I launched the makeup brushes. I did a whole advertising campaign in City People at the time. I started with a picture of something new is coming from Tara. And this is going to be ours. And it was a beautiful faux leather pack in orange. That was my brand color, with the silver brushes with the logo on it. Tara written on it. And then the makeup boxes had Tara monogrammed on the inside. I had the audacity to ask them to monogram, you know, the way you have LV, right? LV, LV, LV. When you open the box, it was Tara, 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 Tara. I had the audacity to do so. But I looked at it and I thought, this is a valuable name, you know, you might as well just go ahead, you know. And so we did this launch. But guess what? When people came to the launch after the whole campaign created a sense of curiosity. When people came, they said they thought it was makeup products. They thought it was lipsticks, powders. And then it became clear to me that Nigerian women were willing to buy a Tara powder and a Tara lipstick. Another idea came to me. When I told the Chinese guy, he said, "You have not even finished selling this one you're selling. Come here again." It's almost like move away. And so that's how I started to sell the products. The power of trade credits. I would like to talk a little bit about that. You know, Nigerians, they say, have a reputation around the world of being dishonest. But I found that my Chinese guy, when it was time to pay the balance after my things had arrived, remember that I was now lean on cash because I'd cleared out my account to start this business. I wasn't sure that there was a huge market for it. He said to me, "When you sell, pay me." And many times we go to the bank looking for credits, but sometimes the credit can be your partners, your suppliers. If only you can ask. In my case, I didn't even ask. I think that was more of a divine intervention. There was another thing that happened on the day of the launch. You know, now I didn't have makeup products. I was only going to sell brushes and boxes, but I still had something in my mind to say, you know what, you still need makeup. So I went back to Alaja Tejusho and I said, "Ma, I'm opening a makeup studio." She was fascinated by this young girl. And sometimes your belief can be so infectious that people want to support you just because you believe in yourself. And you know, what Alaja Tejusho did was she said, "Take this, take this, take this, take this." I gave her all the money I had. It wasn't enough. She said to me, "Go ahead and take when you sell." So I'm hearing from two different people, one a Nigerian, one a foreigner. I want to debunk this idea that Nigerians have such a bad reputation that no one wants to do business with us. Is a lie from the pits of hell. You have the opportunity to make a name for yourself and stand apart and stand out. Alaja Tejusho saw a young girl who was disciplined and dedicated, and she saw me over time and decided, "I'm going to put a bet on this girl." Now, guess what? On the day of the launch, she came in her Jankara lace with, you know, all the shiny stuff. She has a golden teeth. She looks out of place, but she's so proud of me because she remembered when I started. And she came here to this makeup studio, and for the first time, she's hearing something like this is happening in Nigeria. She sat down there. I counted her money at the end of the event, gave her the cash. She went away noting that this is my new daughter. And so every time I got to Tejusho, Alaja was there to say, "I bought this thing. When I was buying this, I was thinking about you in America. I bought something for you. So anytime your customer wants it, come." But it also meant it was also time for me to start to think about my own line of products. And so that's how Tara products came to be in terms of the vision, and then went ahead. We started with 3 lipsticks and 3 pencils. And when we started yet again, there wasn't a huge market for it. I was a bit afraid. The makeup brushes were selling because they were just consumers who were buying 1 and 2, but more than the students that I had. However, the makeup product was even going to be more demanding because now they were asking for 2,000 minimum pieces and moving from 200 to 2,000. How will I sell? How will I move the volumes? And this is the power of seeking counsel and looking for advisors. And I want to also debunk another phrase that I've heard many times: women don't support other women. It is a lie from the pits of hell. So I've given you two lies from the pits of hell. The second one is that women don't support women. I sat with Mrs. Adenike Ogunlesi, and I said to her, Auntie, I have this is the challenge I'm facing. She said to me, you've built a brand. Young people are inspired by what you're doing, because it was new, it was novel, it was innovative. And I was young. And she said, go to the campuses and get them to resell your products. And that's how I started to do tours across the campuses with Tara products, collaborated with fellowships, collaborated with societies, and started to develop our first direct-to-consumer business model. That business is responsible for giving me the name that I have internationally, simply because of the impact that I made in the lives of young women. So by going to campuses, what I was doing was training them and giving them a product and getting them to make as much as 50% on their investment. I tell you something that was also fascinating was that the product did not arrive on time. But those ladies had the samples and I had shown them the samples. Based on the samples, they made their deposits from their school fees, from their chop money, as they say. Yet again said to me, there's something special right here. There is a brand. And what is a brand? A brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. Absolutely. You need to find what it is that people are saying, and that is what determines the brand essence. Here it was inspiration, right? It was empowerment. This was what was coming to the minds of people. And so it wasn't just the product they were buying, it was the essence behind the product. And the essence is really how the brand makes you feel. So for the young people, I was an example of a young person who was doing something different, unusual. I wasn't just waiting to be a lawyer. I was starting a business. I had the audacity to open a makeup studio in VI. This was inspiration. That was what they were keen into. So the question for you is, as I build my brand, what is the feeling that I give to my customers? Because it's not about, otherwise, if it's just about products, everybody has a product. But there is something about this person, this thing, this experience that is beyond a product. And so the question for me was, how was I going to bottle this brand into something that could be scalable in the future? I didn't know at the time. And so we started on that journey. So as I started to grow, now products, stock, inventory management, attending to customers, ensuring that the distributors or the supplier was paid monthly as I ought to. I was doing that, but also doing makeup, traveling to the north, because now the brides in the north wanted a makeup artist. There was no makeup artist in the north. So I was being flown from Lagos to Kano to Kaduna to do these brides. Remember, I still have a business of product sales. And I don't have staff. I have one staff who's selling, who's helping me to, and then when counting rubbish today, we say we have 5,000, tomorrow we say we have 2,000, next tomorrow is 300, upside down. And it became clear to me that I needed support and needed help at a professional level, no longer just somebody random to just put in the makeup studio when I'm not there. It became clear that I needed professional. And yet again, we get afraid because we think small of ourselves. Like, why would somebody who's a professional come and work for House of Tara? And, one of my favorite scriptures is in the Bible. I'm a person of faith, so I'm going to quote scriptures as much as I'm allowed to, right? Of course. And one of the things is the righteous is as bold as a lion. And righteousness is not necessarily purity, living a consecrated life. It's right standing with God, right? Absolutely. And sometimes we are timid to take steps. This guy, I had a conversation with a friend of mine. I said, I'm looking for a professional. I'm looking for someone who has a master's, who has done an MBA in business, somebody who would find House of Tara. This is the power of also storytelling, inspiring to come and give of their time. And she said to me, you know what? I know somebody in my class who may be interested in this. He's actually the class prefect. See this? Not just anybody, class prefect. So I engaged to find him, start with him, talk to him. But I must also realize that Nigeria is also a very patriarchal society. So if you're a woman and you're invited a man to come and work for you, the chance is that sometimes they may see you a certain way. So I did a great job about sharing my story and talking about where I was starting from, what I wanted to do, and sharing the vision for the future. But when I saw that it was not hitting home, I decided to pull and you have to find where your dagger, your target, your arrow, your archer is. One of my archers is my husband. So I got in to have lunch with my husband, and that was the end of the kiss. He joined us and was my first professional employee. He studied finance. He was just finishing an MBA at LBS at the Lagos Business School, came to join the organization. And the power of professional employees is that they shift your mind. The minute he joined, he said to me, my MD, he used to call me, you need to go to LBS. There's a program called the Owner Managers Program. And at the time, this was cohort 11. I was the youngest in my class. Mrs. Alakija was also in my class. And at the time, I think you have to pay 800,000 for the course. It was very expensive then, maybe about 2008 or 9. 800,000 was a lot of money. But he said, I will negotiate for you so that we can pay in bits and bobs until you finish paying. And that's how I went to LBS. And one of the things he said to me is, I need your language to change. You need to speak more business English. And the humility of learning. So Chinedu came and worked with us for that year. He created our first franchise business model. I sat in the one day and a young man came who has a chain of photography studios in the western part of Nigeria, in Ife, in Ibadan. And he had built, and his name was quite known. It was called Pixel, because he was on campuses in the University of Ibadan, different universities. And he was now building locations. And he was looking for a makeup brand because now makeup is becoming a thing. And he wanted to collaborate with us also because we were a solid brand. So he said he wanted a franchise. I didn't even know what a franchise meant. I didn't even think that anybody would want to put my business name on there, because here it was him who was telling me what my business name meant. And he said, each location, I have more land that I need, and I have more infrastructure than I need. We can brand this whole place. And Chinedu said, let's go with it. Also men are fearless. And he immediately said, let's do this. So he sat down, built our system. And the thing about branching, when you think about franchise is really about how do we take what we are doing that is working, document it so that we can scale it.
Absolutely.
And this was also what now was going to be our first store outside of the store that I had in VI. And this was a franchise in Ibadan. We opened, great success. And now I was ready to expand. Cut long story short, we started our expansion from then. We opened our first studio in Ikeja. And then soon after, we continued to grow over, to different parts of Nigeria, depending on what was needed. 1 year, we opened 10 locations in the same year, when I was now at a point where we had the process of building to the T. So we could order things in advance in bulk, because we knew we were going to open these locations and they needed to be the same thing over and over again. I think one of the greatest challenges of expansion is also about human development. I always tease that people taught me how to treat them. But what I've come to realize is that as you build the structure and the processes, you have to think about what is the culture that you want to build in your organization, and what does that mean? And culture is, I want people to be able to look at me and know I'm Yoruba, right? Because I like parties, for example, or because I like trading and go, right? Or I like this or the other. Those are the things that make a culture. There's something about the people. So what do I want the people to be like? I got the chance, of course, going to LBS, that taught me a lot about building a company culture. And I started becoming very passionate about, sat down, drafted our vision, the company vision, to be a globally respected beauty company of African origin, came up with our core values, our mission statement, got everyone to recite it over and over again. So every month, today in House of Tara, if you meet any House of Tara employee and you ask them what's the company vision, they know it by heart. And some people tease that brainwash people, but unfortunately, in our country, you have to brainwash people because every time they step out, there is an opposition against the culture that you're building on the inside. So very excited that in 2016 or 17, Jobberman called us one of the best places to work in Nigeria. I don't know what else. I think there's so much more to talk about in terms of finance, HR, internal audit, the importance of all of these things. I would let Dr. Wani ask me more specific questions around those.
Yeah.
And from there. Thank you.
Honestly, I just didn't. Can we just let me say in the chat, the claps, the flowers, it's just been, I just don't even want you to stop. Honestly, it's just been amazing. Amazing, Tara. You're so inspirational, and you've said a lot. And let me, before I kind of summarize some of the points and then ask you further questions, I'd like to see in the chat what jumps at you today from what Tara has been talking about. Just anything that you can say, yeah, this strikes me. And honestly, I'm learning this. Courage, culture. Go on. I want to say it. Inspirational. You're inspired. Be bold, fearless, audacious. Partnerships. Go on, go on. Resilience. Yeah, branding, tenacity, humility, learner mindset, character, vision. Lovely. Keep it going. Self-belief. Never give up. Being resolute, consistency, power of networking. Beautiful, action-driven, humility, destiny helpers, meaningful partnerships, innovation, branding, seeing eyes, optimism, belief in self, integrity, lovely, wisdom. Honestly, Tara, you're so wise. System optimization. I love that. Knowing when you need help. Oh, beautiful open-mindedness, self-development. Honestly, you said it all. There's just so many things from what you've said, some of the things I put down. I love the fact that you said you are your first marketer. Nobody will market you better than you, the owner of the product or the service. Why do we shy away? Who's going to, we feel, oh, sometimes we mistake such things for humility. It's not humility. It affected me for a long time because you see, when I started my profession, my career, my professional life, I started as a lawyer. In Nigeria, as you would know, Tara, we don't advertise. You're not allowed to advertise in Nigeria, unlike the US, where you see them on TV. You're not allowed to. So I struggled. Yeah. Yes. When I got into education, it was the struggle of, you're not supposed to. But after a while, I learned, and actually it was scripture God gave me, anyway, that's the story for another day. So we need to advertise. You need to market yourself. If you are doing something, show the world, because what you are doing is that, first of all, you are spreading the good, the good news of what you're doing. You're giving other people the opportunity to come to take advantage of your product or your service. I like the fact that you did the testing. We talked about that on Monday, on Tuesday. Testing, volunteering, just putting yourself out there and just letting people see what you can do. Risk management. It is so key. Always assessing your risk. You learned from your mistake. You didn't run away. You didn't say, oh dear, I'm not going to do this anymore. You learned from that. Customer validation, word of mouth. A lot of part of your marketing was also word of mouth. I like the fact that identifying different doors, different doors of opportunities. We mentioned that on Monday, on Tuesday, identification of gaps. You would see it. I think it's amazing how you connect the dots, Tara. You're just able to connect the dots. It stands out in your story. You see that, and I think it's part of creative thinking and critical thinking, because you're just able to say, there's a gap there. Somebody said that. I think it's a skill for every entrepreneur. Combine it. Anyway, I'll come to the questions. Or the creative thinking, power of network. power of network. It is so important to have to understand that you can't achieve everything by yourself. You need people, and you reach out to people and be there for other people as well. You created a demand for your service and your product. You didn't wait for people to ask. You created the demand. I love the way you built your brand, the brand building, your personal brand, and also which kind of has an effect on your corporate brand. It's just so many things, the structure of your company, how you built your business model. You're building your business model, creating a company culture that is so key, and all that. So many things to learn. Okay, few questions before I take the question from the audience. The franchise model, it's not something that's very common in Nigeria. I know that with maybe the food chains, we have a bit of that, but it's still relatively new and it's something I'm very interested in, right? But then, of course, it's totally different in education because there's just so many things involved. But it's something that I'd like to know more about, because sometimes you have other aspects of your company that could be franchised. Let me say in education, some other things that we do that could be franchised. How do you maintain quality, Tara? Because quality assurance, you built a brand. That's what a franchise is. You built a brand. Other people can leverage on your brand. You don't, and you can also spread to other places without having to put the funds down, So you have your owner, you have the ones that are owned by you, and then you have other companies that are franchise. You're spreading without having to put the funds down, and then they are leveraging on your brand. Quality assurance is what bothers most of us. And we've seen it kill a lot of even food franchises. Mr. Biggs, I remember at that time, Mr. Biggs, you go to this one, it'll be good. You go to the next one, you're like, what? What's this? So how do you maintain quality with your franchise?
I think that, first of all, we have a cultural problem as a country. And this is the risk, right? So we're talking about assessing risk. If you want to go into franchises, clear risk that exists, and then you have to now ask yourself, what are the things you're going to put in place to mitigate, right, against the risk that you have assessed? And one of there are two things. Number one, if you're considering developing a franchise, you must acknowledge that as much as this opportunity exists, because Nigeria is a big country where there's too much focus on a few states, Rivers, Abuja, and the likes, and there's all the other roles.
The network is
and
going.
There are people in all those places, and there's opportunity there.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Is it I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Okay. The first thing is that you have to acknowledge this, that we have a quality problem, okay, in terms of standards, okay?
Yeah.
And that's one. The second one is integrity. We have very poor values. So when people say this, they sign things, many chances that they will not do those things that they've committed to doing. So when you now know these two things, you then ask yourself, what are the systems I'm going to put in place to safeguard, to create guardrails around my brand in a manner that I don't have to wait for them to disappoint me. The mistakes we made was to assume that people are people of value like us. So, I wouldn't do this to somebody else's brand. Therefore, unfortunately, that's not the case. Okay. And the power of building systems is to take out the personal, if you care, the personal or the emotional part of it, right? Is when you build the systems, it's really about let the system work. It's not about any person. Okay. So when you have this behind your mind, your internal control system has to be the T. You have to have the resources. When people pay you for the franchise, you have to invest in your internal control systems, right? You have to invest in the training of the people. And you have to go beyond and never think to yourself, well, because they're educated, because they have funds and they have resources. No, you have to almost do the same thing that we did at House of Tara, which was
Absolutely.
to brainwash them, right? About our
Mhm.
values. So in House of Tara, we have the 10 values that you have to recite every day. You have the company vision that you have to recite every day. Even with all this, it's still tough to maintain the system, to maintain the brand that you're trying to do. You have to do 10 times more if you're going to build a franchise. Yeah. So I think that's
yeah, no, absolutely. Because, and I guess one should be ready to do all that because it's your name at stake, isn't it? You've built
yes.
that name for so
Yes.
long, so it's your
Yes.
name at stake. Okay, thank you for that. Internal controls. We talk about structure every time. I'm still going to round up with that because I think that's where a lot of us fail. We have the ideas, we start the things, but we don't understand how to build systems and structures, which should be the foundation of your company, without which it will crumble. So
Yes.
you've said a lot about that. You did say a lot too, and I mustn't gloss over that, and which we have kind of been talking about since Monday. God's assistance, divine intervention, the righteous is as bold as a lion. I think
That's
there's a goal. We can't over. Please go on. You want to say something?
Yes. So around my faith, even in my succession planning, there was
I'm going to ask you. I'm just in a minute.
Yes,
We're going to go into the
So
succession.
so there are different parts of the business where I had to hear God, and when I say that, as a Christian, we have some spiritual practices, and one of the spiritual practices is when we want to take some big decisions, we actually take time, separate ourselves, and seek the voice of God to hear. And all as Christians have to learn how to hear how God speaks to us, because He speaks to us uniquely. Sometimes my husband, God speaks to him through a voice. He hears voice. In my case, I don't hear voice. I have a premonition, a strong sense in my heart, and a sense of peace. And since I've realized that that's the pattern in which God speaks to me, I will always find a need to go quieten. Now, when God says I should do something, it doesn't mean that it comes out perfect. But I'm rest assured that because He said I should, then I'm at ease knowing that He will work everything out to fulfill his good counsel. So my faith is a huge part of my business. As I was building the structure of the business, the many things I learned from the Bible. Let everything be done in orderliness, right? In order. And that orderliness, it's a God principle, right? If you see the way God designed the world, it is structure and it is systems that deliver on those things on a day-to-day basis. So whether you are in Lagos or Abuja, the sun will shine when it's going to shine.
Yeah, that's lovely. Okay, another question. You've been able to scale, expand. I know your business model is also franchising and all that, but have you had to maybe enter into any kind of equity partnerships? Do you have any funding from any other source? Things like, apart from, do you take money from the bank? Or do you have equity partners? Just talk about funding a bit.
Okay, so from a funding structure standpoint, we've really only done debt. We haven't done external investors at all. It's more of debt from the banks. But in more recent years, I think with the rates, we haven't done so. I'm one of those who would like to confess that I had the opportunity in 2015 when a French multinational came to House of Tara, and they courted us for about 3.5 years to convince me to sell some stake in the business. I regret not doing it because subsequently our product got counterfeited, and I had to fight it as a one-man show, as opposed to if I had a conglomerate behind me. I disappointed the team because I made a decision not to go ahead to sell the amount of stake in the business. But I today look back and it's something that I regret doing because I feel like even though the board had said that I should, I made my own case, and at the end of the day, it's still up to me to make my decision. So I've kind of licked my wounds and decided to just see the good in it. The good in it is for them. The good in it is an international French the largest French company in the world came to me and saw the brand. And that for me is, and the process of preparing, they were very impressed by our systems and our structure at the time. PwC was our auditors, and it wasn't because I was waiting. I was doing it because I just wanted to do things properly. And it was impressive that our documentation was to the T. And we had moved also to professional managers. You know, I brought in somebody from ex-KPMG, ex-Shell. I brought somebody ex-Microsoft and ex-Diageo. They were working with me as partners in the business, employees, but as partners because they were like my peers. And by the time we put together all our skill set, the business exploded, became more attractive to these PE firms were chasing us. I wasn't even talking to them at all. But what did I take away from that is to know that building a brand is important.
And you can even imagine where you are now. If you are going to bring in an investor, you will be attracting so much more than when you were small and you could have taken it then. Because I'm sure in those number of years, you are much bigger. So by the time you're selling any amount of shares to anybody now, it will be at a lot more, you know, you get a lot more for it because you've done the work. So I'm glad. I guess that would have been your redemptive.
Yeah, so Dr. Kenny, unfortunately, because of what has happened in the Nigerian economy, the value of the business is less than it was.
Oh, at that time.
Because now, ₦1 billion revenues, when you put it in dollars, what it was then is not what it is today. So you can generating much more in Naira, but as long as you're generating your majority of your fund in Naira, the value is not the same. So,
and you don't think
in a
that
sense,
the amount of expansion that you've achieved.
No, there is a portion of that, but still,
not because of the
because of the economy that we sit as a business. So that's a factor.
Okay, good.
Move.
Yeah, so because I would have asked you about your redemptive, what mistakes you've made and what you've learned, and I actually think that is a very good point there. I've never ever really thought about. I've thought about it, but I've never done it. But it's something that I'm beginning to think about. That's I go for it. I've always done debt, as you said, as well. But should I go equity partnerships and but it's so just so that I can take some other questions. Somebody would like to know, what is it about your childhood and background that says, what role did your childhood and background play in your approach to business? Your upbringing.
My upbringing. So my childhood. So there's two parts of my childhood that I think are responsible for my tenacity, my resilience. One of them is because at a very young age, I was about 8 years old, and my parents didn't go to church. But there was a church round the corner from my home. And I was 8 years old, 9. I would walk to this church. And it was a Baptist church in Ikoyi. It's called Ikoyi Baptist Church on Bell Avenue. And when I arrived at the service on a Sunday, there was a beautiful, beautiful Sunday school teacher called Dr. Luole, who used to just bring the Bible alive, right? But the thing was, the children who were in the class were children who were raised in Christian homes. So when she asked questions about who is the father of Isaac, and the kids who put up their hand, I man, everybody answers, and I don't have an answer because we didn't read the Bible at home. So I didn't have access to that sort of information. But it set curiosity in my heart. And the curiosity was to know what these kids knew. So I would leave church after the and go to look for a Bible at home. And so I finally found one Bible. My father was gifted that Bible by his cousin for his 40th birthday. And I remember her name was a leather backed Bible, King James Version. And it had the words of Jesus in red. And so I was very fascinated by that, right? And so in a sense, when people ask me, it's almost like I had a call, because it wasn't like anyone talked to me. It was like I had a yearning, I had a desire. And as a 40 to 48-year-old woman, I still have that same yearning to study the Bible. I have a culture of reading the Bible every day because I know that one chapter of the Bible saves me from a faithless life, right? And so I think that the dariness, the boldness comes with feeding myself with God's word. The righteous as bold as a lion, yes, they that know their God, they shall be strong and they shall do exploits. And these things around faith walked as others, examples of the Bible who have walked by faith. I also want to walk by faith, and I want to be recorded as one of the apostles, right? And one day a book should be written about the Acts of the Apostles of Nigerian entrepreneurship. And then one of my stories come up to say, Tara Feladuro was one of the apostles at that time. These were the miracles that they performed, and lives were transformed as a result of the work that they did. And one day the book is opened, and they have two chapters. The way they have a chapter about Stephen, another chapter about Paul, another chapter about Peter, they will have a chapter about Tara. And it will be this conversations about the work that I did. And at the end of the day, I would say that childhood shaped the strength, the tenacity, the faith, I would say, to step out, to do things today that I have. Yeah.
That's beautiful. Getting to know the words of God, your faith and everything. That is awesome. So 2 more questions. Before we go into the succession planning, we're rounding up soon. If some people are here and they're thinking, I'm an employee right now, and I would like to start my business someday. You've told us your story. In maybe just what are the 3 to 5 things that you say, points, do this, do this, do this. And for some people, they're still maybe they're still trying to find that purpose. They want to, just knowing exactly what to do in life. They work, they do that, but not everybody has been able to identify that purpose. How did you, because even as a law student, you were then able to set up your studio, your shop, so how do you transition, first of all, even knowing that vision, which way to go? And also, I'm a worker, I want to become an entrepreneur someday. Then we'll go into succession plan.
Okay, so as a worker that wants to go into entrepreneurship, hey, I don't have enough experience. So I would like to say, and then of course I'm biased, right? I'm also biased because I'm an entrepreneur. So I would say that the first thing is, so if I'm speaking from someone who.
You're muted. You're muted. Tara,
Sorry,
you went? Good. Okay.
So I would say if you currently work in an establishment, this is the perspective I would like to take it. I'm sure Mrs. Akingwe and Auntie Mrs. Adekwetu shared their perspective, but I'd like to share a different perspective this time. Is that if you are leaving an organization, give it your best shot. Whatever you can find to do it with all your might. That's another phrase from the Bible. And why should you do it with all your might? You will be surprised the things you will discover about yourself as a result of doing it all your might. You'll be surprised the people who are watching you to see you. You'll be surprised the investment you're making in somebody else's business, that is a seed that you're sowing for your business. And in other cases, maybe not even your own business, for the business of your own children, because seeds speak, they bear fruit. And what is the fruit you want to bear? So I would say, I know sometimes you can work for a very wicked employer. But yet again, this is what the Bible says about working for a terrible employer, is that that's the time when your character is really tested. So when you are working for a terrible employer, do it with all your heart, because you are being tested to see how well you can thrive regardless. So give it your best shot for different reasons. And then if you're leaving, I would also say planning is so powerful. You're being someone who's able to look and say, I want to leave in 10 months. I want to leave in 2 months. What is it going to be? What is it going to cost? What does my lifestyle cost? And do I have enough money if this does not work? So rather than you can be testing it by the side, but make sure that you ask yourself, what does it cost to be me? Go to the bank. How much did you spend in 2024? How much did you spend in 2023? What does the number say? And do you have that money if things don't work out? So that you don't start business and things don't work out, and then you're not a young person.
Count the cost before you.
Yes. So this would be my two cents.
All right, great. For those who are trying to find vision, please.
Yes, and purpose. I think there's a great book written by Miles Monroe on purpose, and he was a very passionate teacher about purpose. YouTube is your university. Just go and listen and listen and listen until you get the understanding on the how to find. And sometimes he comes up with certain questions that you have to ask yourself. When you go through that question sessions and through reflection, you'll be able to identify what your purpose is. So I'll say get a book.
What's the title?
I don't remember, but it's Miles Monroe on purpose. It's a book on purpose.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So then you are no more the CEO, you said, of House of Tara. You have appointed somebody. Tell us about succession planning as we begin to round up. I'm sure you guys are happy to still be here listening and just enjoying this awesome session. So please tell us about succession planning, Tara.
Okay, so 5 minutes I'll talk about that because I don't want to keep us too long. I think that succession planning has to be something that not until you want to hand over before you think about succession planning. So succession planning for me was something I was very passionate about. So when I'm having conversations with people and they're working in House of Tara, for example, the accountant, I would always say, in the pursuit of purpose, fantastic. Thank you for that. I would say, if you are no longer here, with the person who's working with you be able to do what you do?
Absolutely.
And sometimes when I have meetings with, at the time, department heads, I would insist that they come into the office with their support. And I've noticed I pay attention to body language. If I find that the subordinate is not able to carry on a conversation with me without looking, your appraisal time comes, I tell you, House of Tara is a place where we develop leaders, and leadership ensure that you are not the only leader in your group. So I also insist that when they present to me, they also come with someone from their team who takes a portion of the presentation so that their skill on presentation is better, because you never know when people are going to leave, right? And because of that reason, it has to become a clear path, standard of development. So when I talk about leadership pipeline, it's not just, it is to the cleaner. It has to become a culture within the organization that people know that as I'm here, every information must not be kept in my stomach. It must be here to be shared, right? And one of our values as a business was empowerment. And when we recite empowerment, we say it's about making somebody better. It's about the power of delegation. It's about, I train you, I show you what I can do, you watch me, and then I start doing it, and then I allow you to do it. I watch you as you do it. And then after a while, I leave you to do it. And what about issues you face? You come back and I can support you. And after a while, I leave you completely to do it. That has to become a culture. So when I decided that it was time, almost 4 years ago, that I wanted to transition out of the role, if you remember that the business was already over 20 years, things happen sometimes where you feel there's more for you to do out there. I came to a place where I acknowledged that it was my reality, and that time had come. The first thing I did was, number one, I put a system of sisters around me to support me through my transition. And this is the power of sisterhood. For those people who don't believe in friendships, you are missing out. So my friends put together a WhatsApp group, and the WhatsApp group, there was one person who was in charge of Tara's life after House of Tara. And there was also House of Tara as Tara leaves. So what were the 3 priorities that I needed to fix? What were the 4 things that I needed to focus on as I was transitioning? And I identified what those things were, and then created timelines around fixing those things or empowering people to do those things, but putting them as my focus. But I think preparing myself was so important. Remember that I started the business as an undergraduate, so it was my life. It was basically my first child in a sense, because it's older than my first child. My first child is 23, business is 27. So you know that I started it before I even had my first child. It meant that most of my youth was spent here. The brand had become part of my identity in a lot of ways. So if I went somewhere and somebody could remember my name, they would say House of Tara. And in other cases, are you the makeup lady? Are you see, this was part of, and so the question was, what was I going to do next? I was very lucky that I started to build my personal brand intentionally in the last 10 years. Speaker, as a board advisor, as someone who's an entrepreneurial leader. I was very deliberate about building that. So I have now a career as a professional speaker. And that's not something that happened before. It was something that I started to work on before I left House of Tara. So in the transition, it was about, what is it going to cost to be me outside of here? The company gave me an office. The company gave me these things. Those things I have to leave behind. That office is no longer my office, because the office of the managing director of House of Tara. What would I do next? Where would I function out of? How would I fund this and that? And I think that sometimes we have to not take it for granted that it is a real thing, especially if you are an entrepreneur who has built from scratch, that there's a chance that you're so attached to business that you then don't know what to do outside of it. So my charge to you be, put it down, start writing. What can my life be outside of, whatever the organization is, and start to plan for that.
That's absolutely amazing, because I think especially that's a passion of mine. It's my lived experience. When you actually plan for succession, it's not something that you add on at the end. It's something that's everything is, everything comes together. The development of the people, when you're employing, everything, it's just a continuum, isn't it? So it's that idea of having it at the forefront, and most people don't. Most people think it's something that let me sort out this, let me look at my finance, let me look at, and then I start planning. As you said, for my company, everybody must have at least 2 people they are grooming, and you are also being grooming for another position. Now you begin to identify, you begin to build a talent pool, because not everybody would be succession, would have that
material.
Absolutely, succession material. So it's just having it, and I see a lot for a lot of people, we're still not getting it. Anyway, because of time, I won't even be able to show my concluding slides today. But I just want to thank you, Tara. I want to thank you. It's just been an amazing time. There's still lots of questions, but it's 11:20 my time, which is what time is it in Nigeria now? 5:20, and we would have to call it a day. But I will maybe send questions to you. Friday, it will be a question and answer time on Friday as well. I will be taking Friday. All the questions that we've not answered, I would have spoken to the speakers, and I'll have the answers for you. Tara, any parting words for our audience?
When you think about building structure and you think about succession planning, it's beyond you. Our country needs it. Business founders. Our country needs businesses that will continue to provide jobs for people, so that the businesses that in 1970, they still existed to today, will not have some of the unemployment issues that we have today. So my charge to you is, as you're building, don't just build for today, build for tomorrow, build for the next generation, build for 100 years, because Nigeria needs it. Thank you.
Can I see the claps and the flowers and the love?
And the flag of Nigeria.
Yes, and the flag of Nigeria. We're reformers. Honestly, this is what it's all about. It's about legacy. It's another thing that succession planning helps you. As you're saying, when you put other people there, you're able to do more. You're able to do more of the speaking, the teaching, which is what I'm also doing now, So well done, Tara. Yes, I can see the flag of Nigeria, the flowers. Thank you so much, Tara. Thank you. Thank you. God bless you. All right. So we've come to the end. See you tomorrow. tomorrow we're going to have Mr. Austin Okere. What happened last year when we had the summit? People were saying, what happened to the men? Are you saying there are no men in the business space? Are we just being sexist or something like that? So we have the awesome Mr. Okere coming in tomorrow. It promises to be just an amazing time. He started, as a limited liability company. Today, he has a public listed company, and he's a leadership guru. We're just so excited to have him. So be here on time tomorrow, Mr. Austin Okere of CWG, Computer Warehouse Group. God bless you all. Bye. Bye. Let me see. Bye. Let's see. Yeah, awesome. Awesome.